expenses go. So that maybe you want to do those kinds of ETFs that I'm doing. There's also the SPY, or like I do CXSE, which is the Chinese technology sector ETF. And maybe you care about commodities or energy or whatever you're picking. And you can even do with individual stocks. I do with individual stocks, especially when there's a market correction or a bear market occurring. I always do dollar cost averaging through them. Basically, what it does, if you look on the right, you want to buy when security is underpriced, when it's overpriced, when it's correctly priced, and you do that monthly, weekly, quarterly. And the idea is that as you pay when it's over and underpriced, you're about going to get the average price. So if you're getting the average price, let's say that you're investing in the S&P 500 ETF. All the S&P 500 over long periods of time, it's going to return 8 to 12% annually. You're going to get the average price. And the average price, you're going to get that average return. You're going to get that average 8 to 12% annual return. That's the strategy. It's literally that simple. You're just getting the average price, getting the average return, and you're not trying to do anything special or impressive or anything like that. It's really simple, straightforward. And I think every human should have that in their portfolio. Whether that should be the only thing you have, or that should be maybe half or a minority or whatever it is that you're doing, that's kind of more up to how much work are you willing to put in and what's your tolerance like. I think every human should be cost averaging these some kind of ETF, or maybe you can find a great mutual fund or whatever else. But it's just a great way to protect yourself from, like, maybe you lump sum everything in right before the 2008 recession hits. If you threw all your money in, like right at the peak, right before that crashed, kind of stealing years of gains from yourself. But if you dollar cost average through it, then you're going to be buying assets while they're at those all-time lows during the recession, even though you're buying them at all-time highs right before it. And it's just a simple way to protect yourself and to not be too stressed out when you see a crash, because you're just like, okay, good, this will help. I'll be getting everything for a little cheaper than usual, and I don't care anyway because I'm investing. I'm not trading. I'm holding these things for years. I don't know if I talked about that, but trading is just when you buy an asset with the intention of selling it within 1 year, which means you're paying the short-term capital gains, which are more than twice as much as long-term capital gains. This is investing, is buying with the intention of holding it for at least a year. I'd say more like 5 or 7 or 10 or more years. Everything I buy with intention of holding it for like at least 20 years. Obviously, circumstances change, executive management changes, trees have shifts and shocks and everything. So you got to be prepared to adjust for that.
Michael,
this is a investing thing. Yeah.
I had a question for the dollar cost averaging. What would your recommendations be for how much you allocate for the trade?
Well, again, that's going to kind of come down to your risk tolerance. So for me, like I said, I'm a very risk-seeking person. I do a lot of active investing. I think over 85%, might even be 90% of my portfolio is from active investing, which almost none of it comes from dollar cost averaging. I think the best place to start is just dollar cost average some ETFs. Get some exposure, kind of because you're going to see as the market kind of is volatile and is changing. You're going to get stressed out when you start to see that you're down 10% or 20% or whatever. You're going to get elated. That's kind of what this graph on the left is about.
Right. So more focused question then, in regards to, like, let's say the first month, would you recommend just if I was to get my paycheck, would I put all 90% of my paycheck in the first month in that first initial trade, or would I allocate maybe 10% or 20%, or what do you think?
I think you should make sure you got that 6-month cash reserve, right? Make sure you got all the credit card paid off, right? So assuming that's all done, then I would just pick an amount that you think you can commit to spending every single month for the next, like, 2 years. But maybe you work in a seasonal industry, or maybe you're in sales and sometimes you get a big payday kind of thing, which kind of determines your lifestyle. You can commit to, no matter what my employment is, no matter what my commission checks are like or are not like, I can commit absolutely to 100 a month, 200 a month, 300 a month, 500 a month. For me, I do minimum 400 a month because I've built up cash to always be able to put that in as part of my strategy. So I think, like, I think a lot of people should be able to do, at least like 50 or 100 a month. But depending on how much cash you have saved and how stable your sources of income are, pick an amount, just determine an amount that you can budget. You can be like, no matter what, I am spending 300 a month, 500 a month on my dollar cost averaging. If you're going paycheck to paycheck, that gets a little more difficult. I'd say, you probably want to build up a little more cash. You get in at one of the lower numbers, build up that cash reserve so that you're not depending on your income to be investing. So that if you lose your job, you've got the cash in the emergency fund sitting on the side to support yourself, and then you've got the cash sitting in your portfolio or your brokerage account to keep investing into these ETFs passively. Because you don't want to be dependent on your income. If you lose your job and then the market has a big crash like it did last April, you want to have cash in reserve to keep buying in while that's happening.
Let's just assume it's like $500 a month. Would you go in the first day of the month and go into the trade, or are you looking at?
That's arbitrary. You can just, I do the 15th, middle of the month, but you can do the 1st, the 10th, 31st. It doesn't matter. I think everybody should be able to do at least 50 or 100 a month, hopefully. But everybody has different circumstances. Maybe you have debt. Maybe you're underemployed. Who knows?
And it's better to do dollar cost averaging. Let's say I get $10,000 from someone, right? Would it be better just to split that 10,000, 1,000 every month that way, and then just dollar cost average in over the next 12 months? Or would you recommend just going in with that 10,000 the first month?
Yeah, so whenever you get a lump sum from like inheritance or big commission check or selling a house or whatever, and I would never lump sum it like that. It'd be rare that I think that'd be appropriate. You'd have to have a lot of knowledge and a lot of research done on a specific opportunity. As far as passive investing in ETFs, no, that you would never lump sum a big payday like that. Because again, what happens if tomorrow, there's another 9/11 and the whole economy shuts down and the stock market crashes? You want to avoid getting hurt by something like that. And even like, if you got like a big payday, if you got like a big inheritance check or something, and now you're sitting there with like 50K or 10K or 5K or whatever, I wouldn't really even necessarily put it in over 12 months. It might be better to think about putting it in over 24 months or 36 months. And again, that's going to be really particular to what your sources of income are like, how stable sources of income are, how much cash you already have on the sidelines that you're just waiting for an opportunity to jump into. Which is one of the big things I've learned to do, is to try to always keep a significant amount of cash on hand, specifically for investing in market dramatic decreases or corrections or anything.
So we don't want to go all in on how it's shown on the left side where the euphoria is, right? We don't want to put that 10,000 at that peak. We want to kind of cost average in the optimism where we have it, where it's averaging out in the optimism level, right?
Yeah, that's the general strategy. That's kind of like, that's definitely the general strategy. And you can even perform a little better than where that optimism is. Because like what I did when COVID hit last year is I had a bunch of cash on the sidelines, and during like March and April when things were like really bad, but things were bad for a couple months later. So for maybe for about like 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks, I basically doubled the amount that I was dollar cost averaging. So instead of doing my usual 400 minimum to those, I was doing 800. Or I was doing, instead of doing 400 every 4 weeks, I was doing 400 every 2 weeks. and ended up buying, just getting a much lower average cost on my passive investments. So you can you don't have to be like super strict about it, but I think just trying to hit that optimism line where the price is going to be there. That's the easiest and simplest way. And then as you gain experience, as you watch markets, as you read literature, as you go to networking events and study and get mentors and whatever, you can start to maybe tweak your approach a bit to improve your outcomes. And if you don't want to learn about that, then just do the simple, consistent, identical amount every month. Maybe you get like a salary bump, and so you can increase what your monthly is. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it should be easy to hit that. And having that emotional control, that's part of the breakout thing we're gonna have, because in that fear of missing out, you see Tesla skyrocketing or whatever, and you just get scared, or you see GameStop skyrocketing, and you just buy in when it's way overpriced, and you're not doing fundamental research on it, and you're frankly not that experienced, and it's a good way to get burned. I did it plenty of times, the first 3-6 months or whatever that I was investing. And we'll dive deeper into those. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I hope I.
And then Michael, another quick question: Do you ever compare your results with the S&P 500? And if you're matching it, if you're beating it, if you're underperforming?
Started to do that. I mean, I think I've been beating it by I think from the time that I started, I'm like triple the S&P 500. But I also discount my personal performance by a lot because it's only been 2.5 years. I always recommend people do this dollar cost averaging passive investing, is to kind of just get whatever the market's returning, because it might turn out that 4 years goes by and I made some big mistakes, and I just have a massive crash in my portfolio, and I need to acknowledge that sometimes you can't beat the market. I don't know if that's going to happen. I work really hard to hopefully continue getting good returns that are at or above the market. Personally, I really want to get to 7 years of investing. So I want to get another 4.5 years under my belt before I can kind of very confidently say that at least with small amounts of money, so anything kind of under like a few $1 million, that I can actually take that and get the kinds of returns I've been realizing so far. So I just need more time. Yeah. So in reality, I've been beating it.
Just to give you guys some context, with investing with the S&P 500, you're going to be looking at your trades and comparing it with the S&P to see if you match or beat the S&P. And the strategy in it is, are you dollar cost averaging yourself and making a certain amount of percentage that's beating the S&P, or is it just better to invest every month in the S&P 500 and be assured that whatever that 14%, 15%, I think the S&P last year did like 16% or something like that. So it's a typical benchmark in investing world that people compare their returns with the S&P 500.
Yeah, no, the S&P 500 is generally considered to be the American stock market, just like the representation. So, there's the SPY. The SPY is the SPY ETF. You can buy in, and you're just buying the S&P 500. You can just dollar cost average that. If you just do the regular dollar cost averaging, you might underperform a little bit because you're paying those expenses. But I mean, it's very slight. Yeah, no. Whenever you have the question of how am I performing, yeah, just look at what did you do over this period of time versus what the S&P 500 do. That's exactly right. So as far as getting to $1 million with passive investing, if you were doing 100 a month, 35 years, at a 9% return, and we said 8 to 12%. That's kind of where the average is. So 9% is a little on the low end. So if you get that 9% return for 35 years, you're going to get to $1 million, just over $1 million. If you started when you're 30, you'll hit 65, you'll have $1 million sitting there for you. Assuming you're not doing like 401k and other stuff, which gives higher returns because you get those matches and everything. Then if you kind of got, maybe if you got on the high end, maybe you got lucky, then it'd be about double that over 35 years. So it's a really simple way to become a millionaire by retirement. If you're starting late, if you started you're 20, then you'd have this years before that. So again, like I said, I do 400 a month minimum, and this is just kind of my hedge for in case I end up making a bunch of mistakes. Then at least I've got this kind of standard growth.
And Michael, that's 4,800 initial investment. Is that while you're putting more money in every month, or is that just the initial and that's